Our objective today is to thoroughly examine particular shrinkage estimator specifically for the variance-covariance matrix as we proceed with the crucial task of portfolio optimization.
And that particular phenomenon is known as the Ledoit-Wolff shrinkage.
It's a fundamental principle that when we aim to optimize a financial portfolio, a crucial step involves determining the precise weight for each asset, a weight that is directly provided by its calculated z-value. Consequently, a higher z-value will consistently translate into a proportionally higher weight within the portfolio. This essential z-value itself is mathematically derived by multiplying the inverse of the variance-covariance matrix by the expected return of the assets. And then we proceed to calculate the variable W to allow us to solve the entire portfolio problem and determine the optimal weights. For the Ledoit-Wolff target, our primary objective is to shrink the variance-covariance matrix. We do this specifically to avoid the problem of extreme portfolio weights and, more importantly, to significantly enhance the overall stability of our model. This crucial adjustment must be made before we can accurately identify the truly optimal portfolio solution. So, with that in mind, let's take a moment for a quick recap of how the process of portfolio optimization typically works. First, let's assume that we have these expected returns, specifically 1% and 2%. And then we also have this variance-covariance matrix. The variance for the first asset is 4%, and for the second asset it's 5%. The covariance between them is positive, amounting to 3%. So, in this specific scenario, our primary objective is to accurately compute the inverse of the variance-covariance matrix. To successfully achieve this crucial step, we will first be required to precisely ascertain the determinant of matrix S. Subsequently, we must then proceed by carefully shifting the positions of the main diagonal elements, and then, furthermore, we need to reverse the algebraic signs of all the remaining off-diagonal elements. So this is the methodology we employ to calculate the determinants, and when we apply this technique to this particular situation, the result we obtain is the inverted variance-covariance matrix. Once we have successfully completed that initial step, we then proceed to multiply the previously inverted variance-covariance matrix with the specific return matrix. This return matrix, as you may recall, was originally structured as a column vector, and we are multiplying it by this particular matrix. Following this multiplication, we will obtain our z-value. Subsequently, to reach our final result, we will simply add these two resulting numbers together in order to determine the comprehensive overall total z. And finally, we will proceed to divide each individual z-value by the total sum of all values. This particular calculation will then provide us with the specific weight for the first asset, and similarly, it will give us the corresponding weight for the second asset. It's important to note here that we've encountered what appears to be an extreme scenario, because we are currently engaging in short selling for the initial asset while simultaneously taking a longer position in the second asset. However, if we intend to apply the Ledoit-Wolff target, this particular approach necessitates that we first accurately identify and compute the relevant variance-covariance matrix. Our objective here is quite straightforward. We're aiming for a scenario where there's absolutely zero covariance between these two specific assets. Additionally, we're looking for an average variance across both of them. To illustrate this point, consider an example. If we were to calculate the individual variance for the first asset, then do the same for the second asset, and subsequently combine these two values by taking their average, the resulting figure would be precisely 0.045. And then this specific value can be directly utilized as a covariance input. Therefore, rather than depending solely on the individual two variances, we proceed to calculate their average value, effectively seeking to determine the central or middle numerical point between them. And specifically for the covariance component of this calculation, we make the simplifying assumption that its value is precisely zero. This entire construction with these specific parameters then constitutes what we refer to as the desired target matrix. And then we are presented with two distinct solutions for our consideration. We have the option to either proceed directly with the established target, or as a viable alternative, we can utilize the existing sample that we currently possess. And then, as a next step, we need to determine a specific proportion. This proportion essentially dictates how much influence we're willing to give to the target data compared to the actual sample data. For instance, if that proportion is set to 0.5, then we would allocate a weight of 0.5 to the target and an equal weight of 0.5 to the sample.
Or if
we wish to shrink the variance-covariance matrix more, then we can assign a higher number, such as 0.6. The remaining 0.4 will, of course, be applied to the actual sample variance-covariance matrix. By using these numbers, we can simply determine the new variance-covariance matrix. To begin, you would simply multiply, for instance, the assigned weight by the calculated variance of the initial asset. Then you would also take the value of 0.5 and multiply it by that same variance of the first asset. This entire process is performed in accordance with the specified target matrix. Specifically, the target matrix clearly states that the variance value for the first asset and similarly for the second asset is precisely 0.045. Therefore, we multiply this value by 0.5. This calculation will then provide us with the specific variance associated with our first asset. In a similar fashion, we proceed to determine the weighted variance for the second asset. This involves taking the assigned weight and multiplying it by the actual variance observed for that second asset. Additionally, we add the product of 0.5 and the variance of the second asset as specified by our target matrix. And this step will then provide us with the second variance. And then, to find the diagonal element, we can proceed by multiplying the actual covariance by its specific weight. We then add to this the remaining weight, which is subsequently multiplied by the covariance as defined according to the target matrix. It's crucial to remember that this target matrix is generally assumed to be 0. So, in this particular case, we are effectively determining the weighted covariance matrix. This is the weighted covariance value that we are examining. Once we have successfully fed all the necessary data elements into this specific model, we will then be able to clearly see the calculated variance for the first asset and similarly the variance for the second asset. Additionally, it will show us the covariance relationship that exists between asset 1 and asset 2. So what we're observing in this particular instance is a completely different variance-covariance matrix, quite distinct from our previous calculations. You'll notice that we've effectively shrunk, or rather significantly reduced the covariance, pushing it much closer to 0, and consequently, the individual variances now appear to be much closer to the overall average variance that exists between these two distinct assets. And then, if we carefully apply this very same calculation that involved the crucial step of finding the inverted matrix, we will subsequently arrive at this particular resulting shape. After that, we proceed to multiply this outcome by either the mean return or the average values in order to precisely determine the value for z and ultimately to accurately ascertain the final weight. So, if you were to perform the necessary calculations, you would then find that we are going to obtain a set of these specific weights, and these particular weights appear quite different from what we observed previously. Furthermore, their values are not nearly as extreme when we compare them directly to the conditions of the very first scenario we considered. So the main intuition here is that if our portfolio weights depend on the variance-covariance matrix, which is typically the situation in portfolio optimization, and for most of the portfolio objectives, then we must rely on this variance-covariance matrix for our calculations. When the variance-covariance matrix is noisy or perhaps imperfectly estimated, its inverse can become quite unstable, which often leads to the production of extreme and unreliable weights. Shrinkage, however, significantly improves this conditioning by carefully pulling the estimated covariance towards a more structured and robust target. This process effectively stabilizes the inverse matrix and consequently, it helps to stabilize the resulting weights. First, we'll compare the various findings that are available and utilized within the Finance Research Gate website. For our analysis, I've decided to proceed with the time series approach primarily because this particular mode offers access to the dedicated portfolio section. Following that, we will set our data to a monthly frequency for consistency and clarity. Our starting point for this analysis will be the year 2000 and we'll conclude our data range in 2005. Once those parameters are set, we'll simply click Apply to execute the changes. Next, we proceed to carefully select the monthly return, which is the crucial variable that we specifically intend to input into the portfolio optimization process. Our next step involves the careful identification of the specific firms that will constitute our research sample. As an illustrative example, we might choose to concentrate on a single industry or perhaps a distinct economic sector. For instance, we could specifically select the communication services sector and subsequently we would apply our established methodology. At this precise moment, our task is solely focused on the foundational process of assembling our preliminary working sample. You have the option to rename it right here, if that's what you would prefer. And after that, we will then proceed to build the portfolio. So at this point, we'll be applying the covariance estimator. We have two main options, the traditional sample-based one or the Ledoit-Wolff shrinkage method. You have the flexibility to select the automatic option, which essentially means that the software will automatically compute and apply the appropriate shrinkage value without any manual input from your side using its default settings. However, you also retain the ability to perform a completely manual selection if you prefer to have more direct control. Therefore, my recommendation would be to simply allow the system to intelligently analyze the data and then determine the most optimal shrinkage weight for your specific needs. And then subsequently, we are able to execute the management of the investment portfolio. Specifically, in this particular scenario, we are implementing the minimum variance portfolio strategy, which fundamentally depends with significant reliance and exclusively so upon the intricate structure of the variance-covariance matrix. And therefore, the variance-covariance matrix is the primary and indeed the sole component within this specific type of portfolio. Consequently, any error will significantly impact the outcome. Alright, so the entire portfolio construction process has now been successfully completed. Here we can clearly see the specific investment weights that have been allocated. It's crucial to keep in mind that we are implementing a rolling window portfolio optimization strategy here. What this essentially means is that we are consistently taking data from each preceding 12-month period to carefully build out a new portfolio. Subsequently, this entire optimization process is then meticulously repeated month after month continuously. So, for example, considering the most recent period that we specifically chose for our analysis, we successfully obtained these particular investment weightings that were allocated to the various companies operating within our specific industry sector. Upon the completion of this particular phase, we will be in a position to commence a fresh, entirely new series of investigations. It is our intention to maintain consistency by utilizing the precisely identical set of firms and, as you would expect, the very same key variable throughout. And then we will apply it. Alright, it's time to initiate the setup for our portfolio's overall configuration. Thus far, our methodology has remained largely consistent, with the only divergence being our choice of the covariance estimator. For this particular portfolio, we will continue to utilize the very same objective, which is, of course, minimum variance. However, for this specific scenario, I will proceed to select the sample data directly without any form of shrinkage being applied. And then we proceed to actively manage the portfolio. You ought to give it some time. And we got the portfolio weights here. They should be quite distinct from what we've experienced previously, although the actual disparity or the change itself might not be extremely vast. Nevertheless, in the ultimate result or the final outcome, we could certainly encounter some notable variations. For example, the inherent value we're discussing in this specific context will undoubtedly present itself quite differently. Now, the core underlying idea we are proposing is that a deliberate and strategic shrinking of certain elements should ultimately enhance the overall strength and performance of our portfolio. So if you've chosen to select minimum variance, it means the portfolio weights should be more stable. Consequently, this stability will be reflected in the portfolio's primary objective, which in this particular instance is to minimize the overall variance or, more precisely, the standard deviation. Let's scroll down. So for our initial example, portfolio A, which incorporates shrinkage, we can observe these specific numerical results. In contrast, when we consider the scenario without applying any shrinkage to the variance-covariance matrix, we see a different outcome. Therefore, let's direct our attention specifically to the resulting standard deviation values. We successfully achieved a significantly lower standard deviation, which was precisely the primary objective of implementing this minimum variance portfolio strategy. We utilized the exact same sample of firms, the same sample period, and naturally the identical variable, which was a monthly stock return. The sole distinction, and naturally we also maintained the same portfolio objective, which was the minimum variance portfolio. The only difference is in how we approach the treatment of the covariance estimator. By employing the shrinking method, we were able to achieve a more favorable performance, which was clearly demonstrated by a significantly lower standard deviation, especially when compared to the results obtained from utilizing the conventional sample variance-covariance matrix. Thank you so much for watching.